Welcome, everyone. I'm Akram Elias, President of Capital Communications Group and member of the Advisory Council of Global Ties US. Dear friends, I have spent the last 35 years engaged in international exchange. That is 60% of my life. I spent the first 10 of those years as an interpreter accompanying delegations participating in the International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP. As a young immigrant from Lebanon, that decade was my own journey of discovery of America and shaped my heart and mind as an American and fellow traveler on Mothership Earth. This was a priceless gift that no money could ever buy. I had to give back. That is why for the past 25 years, I have invested myself in giving briefings and conducting training workshops for participants in an international exchange from around the world. But dear friends, there is another secret to international exchange, the priceless gift of freedom. James Madison, the father of the US Constitution, said, and I quote, "A diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty." Let me say it again. A diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. International exchange exemplifies this global diffusion of knowledge, which supports the expansion of enlightened liberty. As we in the Global Ties Network celebrate our 60th anniversary, I'm reminded of the words of Martin Luther King Jr., whose "I Have a Dream" speech is fast approaching its 60th. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. In these dark and trying times, you, the members of this incredible network, are the stone of hope for international exchange. Do not give up. Redouble your efforts and arm yourselves with the inexhaustible power of love. Every time you host an international visitor, whether in person or virtually, you make a lasting impression on them as they in turn make their mark on your community. We have so much to offer and so much to learn. Happy 60th. And now I am pleased to introduce today's plenary session, Strengthening Democratic Institutions and Civic Participation, a celebration of community impact.
Hello, everybody. I'm honored to participate in this year's national meeting. The national meeting is always one of my favorite events of the year, and so I'm really happy to be able to speak with you today. And I'm already looking forward to next year when I'll be able to see you all in person. My name is Chris Miner, and I'm the Managing Director of Professional and Cultural Exchanges in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. It's a place that's felt like home to me, partly because I've been there for a really long time, but also because of partners like you who have become friends in advancing people-to-people diplomacy. Over the years, I've seen how Global Ties US Network has made the world a better place through your ideals, your passion, and your commitment to peace and prosperity for Americans and for our visitors. Elevating the promotion and defense of democracy and human rights is a foreign and domestic policy priority for the Biden administration. Societies that respect and defend human rights, gender equality, democratic institutions, and the rule of law are more stable and secure, and they're better equipped to confront global challenges like climate change. But it's not just governments who have a role to play in elevating democracy. Our civil society partners are on the front lines, and their input and experience will be critical. The foundation of ECA's exchange programs is based on foreign policy goals. Democracy is an underlying theme demonstrated throughout the exchange experience, from federalism briefings to meetings to home hospitality. Observing local elections, sitting in on a town meeting, or exchanging ideas with a local advocacy NGO. These activities highlight what is at the core of our programs: the power of democracy in giving a voice to civil society. For the International Visitor Leadership Program in particular, there are so many projects with a goal of strengthening democracy. This year, the office is planning projects on themes such as transparency and accountability in government, democracy and community-based leadership, youth and civic and political engagement, and civil rights for marginalized populations. I could go on and on with more titles, but I think these capture the principles and ideals we aim to promote to future leaders from around the world. One of the best parts of my job is reading the feedback we receive from exchange participants after they've returned home. Over and over, the comments include statements like this one: "The most valuable thing that remains with me after these days is the power of the community and the teamwork of different people." There's no better example of the power of community and no better way to show our democracy at work than the Global Ties Network. You are the true meeting of an engaged citizenry, the citizen diplomats of our country. You inspire participants to return home and advocate for better lives. You show how, despite our challenges and disagreements, we can still live side by side. You demonstrate how one voice, one person can make a difference. That is the strength of citizen diplomacy and the strength of your network. We see the impact and the ripple effect around the world in so many ways. I'm impressed by the stories of Hindu Umaru Ibrahim from Chad and others who've made a difference in their own communities by putting into action the lessons that they've learned on their exchanges. In 2012, when Ibrahim was here for the program Youth Leadership and Civic Engagement in the US, she visited a Native American reservation. Ibrahim was able to compare the sovereign nature of the indigenous communities in the US to her own community's situation in Chad. It was eye-opening for her to see how the education system on the reservation allowed the Native American students to maintain their indigenous identity. Now, she is a human rights champion in her community and a leading voice for marginalized populations. She has served in several leadership positions championing these issues. Almost every day, we hear from our colleagues abroad at the embassies about the impact the IV is having in their countries. And then you tell us about the work and how it impacts your own communities and cities. What we know for sure is that when people from different countries realize that they share similar challenges, desires, and concerns, lives are changed. By sharing your values and ideals with exchange participants as citizen diplomats, you inspire change. You are vital to our work at the State Department, and we thank you for everything that you do to make our programs so successful.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Lerner, the President and CEO of the Texas International Education Consortium and a proud Global Ties US board member. One of the great honors of my career was serving as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs during the Obama administration. During that time, I was lucky to call Chris Miner a colleague and a friend. So Chris and the team at ECA work day after day to ensure a strong public diplomacy infrastructure inside the US government. So I say thank you for your public service and commitment to people exchange. Now, I've traveled a fair way since those days in DC, as I'm currently immersed in life and work in the Lone Star State of Texas. Through Global Ties, however, I do remain connected to the larger policy issues that are being debated and pursued in Washington. This is vital because I need to understand what's happening in Washington, even when I don't have time or the resources to stay updated myself. What's wonderful about the structure of Global Ties is that Washington policymakers also get to learn about what we are doing in our communities to strengthen US public diplomacy. Global Ties is set up specifically to support and share our work at the local and state level. And it's not lip service, it's the everything of this organization. Now at Global Ties, we talk a lot about telling the story of our impact and about sharing at all levels, because we must never take local support for granted. Never underestimate the power of local leaders advocating for our programs. When members of Congress hear from an association of small town mayors or YMCA CEOs or hotel and lodging associations that these programs matter to them, our work just got easier. When I was at DAS overseeing the J1 private sector exchanges, I built a blog called Route J1. And I did that so that I could easily share what successful exchanges looked like at the community level. Interns, summer students, high school students, exchange teachers, These programs benefit our communities as much as they benefit the participants. But if nobody knows about these programs, it's pretty hard to argue their positive impact. Effective communication means making it easy for policymakers to find the story, to retell the story, and to support creating the story in the first place, aka authorizations and appropriations. I spent some years overseeing the public diplomacy portfolio on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I loved Advocacy Day for 3 reasons. One, CBMs carry a level of honesty and legitimacy that helped me ground truth, things that I would hear from government folks. Second, I always needed to restock my stories. A few good impact stories from actual exchanges will get repeated and repeated. Here's an example. This is a great story I learned during an advocacy day. A farmer in North Dakota hosted an intern on his family farm. That intern helped him start exporting first to the intern's home country of France, and then that expanded. Ultimately, that farmer was named Exporter of the Year for his state. Okay, I love that story so much, I'm still repeating it 7 or 8 years later with a few details missing, but you get the picture. It's a great story. It sounds good. I love to tell it. Now, the third reason I love Advocacy Day is that when local leaders are utilizing exchange programs, that makes foreign policy relevant domestically. This is so important, it bears emphasizing. We make foreign policy matter to people everywhere. Rural school districts, violence support networks, large city mayors, judges, national parks, universities. Our work in people-to-people exchange is never just about the participant coming. It is about creating networks that serve our communities. So when we keep that top of mind, it makes the process of communicating impact ever easier. We can never take for granted that people who matter know that we matter. We must constantly define and launch metrics of impact, assess that impact, and then don't just report that to our donors. We connect that impact to things local leaders and civil society groups care about. And then we tell the story. In all honesty, our policymakers are counting on us to do this because our people-to-people work allows our peers around the world to see the true us, the us that make up our civil society and democratic systems in an honest and sharing way. We make it easier for policymakers to talk policy because we are here to provide a glimpse of the us on the inside, and this is really vital for lasting affinity toward our society. This is why exchanges matter. A little goes such a long way. This is why the Department of Defense supports the ECE budget year after year. The more we do, the less they have to do what they do. So the challenge I want to leave us with all here today is to double down on communicating what we do to our local and federal leaders. And let's commit to increasing the number and types of community partners we engage to do this. Let's create more avenues to tell our story. And don't forget what a fantastic story that is. How, in the face of some deep divisions and disagreements, our country still manages to transition government peacefully, send rockets into space, land a rover on Mars, and create vaccines in record-breaking time. Ours is an authentic story, and it needs us to share it. On that note, we're thrilled now to welcome members of Congress celebrating the impact you and your organizations have within your communities.
Today we celebrate 50 years since the start of Global Austin. This organization has enriched the community of Austin through their Citizen Diplomacy Program, which educates members of our community about the diverse cultures at home and abroad. As a lead Republican of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've seen firsthand the benefits of educating one another about the cultures around us. I've always said that with knowledge comes respect. It is because of our efforts like Global Austin Citizen Diplomacy Program that our global community has a deeper understanding and respect for one another, thus creating a more peaceful and cohesive international network at home and abroad. So my thanks to all of you who have supported Global Austin throughout the years. May your efforts continue to be prosperous and successful.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and I proudly represent California's beautiful 13th Congressional District. I am so pleased to join you today to celebrate the Global Ties United States 60th anniversary. Thank you to Global Ties San Francisco for connecting Northern California to the world and promoting United States foreign policy and global engagement. I am so pleased Global Ties San Francisco hosts more than 700 global emerging leaders in the Bay Area each year through their International Visitors Leadership Program and so many other exchange programs, bringing nearly 1.3 million to the local economy annually. Global Ties San Francisco is doing important work to implement short-term professional and diplomatic exchanges that address key global topics like entrepreneurship, technological advancements, human and civil rights, women's empowerment, environmental protection, and trade. As we fight a global health and economic crisis, public diplomacy is more important than ever. As chair of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on State, Foreign Operations, and related programs, I have been fighting for equitable COVID-19 vaccine distribution at home and abroad, because we cannot remain safe in the United States unless we invest in health and safety everywhere in the world. There's so much to be done to address global poverty, the climate crisis, global peace, and more. Public diplomacy and international exchanges will be crucial in tackling these converging crises, and I appreciate your dedication to these issues. Keep up the fight, stay healthy, and thank you again.
Congratulations, Global Ties US, on 60 years of success. As you understand, America is strongest when we work with our neighbors and our allies. By engaging in meaningful partnerships with citizens and governments abroad, we not only advance the ideals of the American people, but also the interests of our friends all across the world. Global Ties US has been diligently building a more peaceful and prosperous world for 6 decades. As our country's largest and oldest citizen diplomacy network, Global Ties US has been at the forefront of public diplomacy. I look forward to seeing its continued positive impact. I would like to recognize the role of Global Ties Arkansas in fostering international relationships and shaping future leaders. Its work connecting Arkansas to the global community has helped promote a greater appreciation for the state and our country and created many wonderful opportunities for international exchanges that help forge lifelong connections and special memories. This program has been influential to strengthening our friendships around the world. Each year, Global Ties Arkansas welcomes more than 100 international exchange participants to the state. These international visitors will become the leaders of tomorrow, and we are so thankful to Global Ties Arkansas for providing them with the opportunities to grow and learn about the natural state and the United States. I've been fortunate to meet with exchange participants on many occasions. They are always eager to learn more about our country and interact with my staff and me. I look forward to continuing those meetings in the future. There is much to be proud of about America's foreign policy. We have been leading by example and investing in education, health, and nutrition needs. But there is still so much work to be done to further global prosperity, and I'm confident that Global Ties US and Global Ties Arkansas will continue to play a critical role in bridging that gap. Thank you again for the positive work you do. I'm proud to be a friend in Congress to your organization. Thank you very much.
It doesn't seem possible it's Global Ties' 60th anniversary, but I want to congratulate you. You know, your exchange programs your members have, they're at the heart of our public diplomacy efforts. I've seen their profound and lasting impact on our foreign relations. In fact, on every community in every state in this country, but then a whole lot of other communities around the world. And I've met many who have participated in the International Visitor Leadership Program. I like the fact that it is described as our premier professional exchange program, and rightly so. I've met international visitor leaders from everywhere from Vietnam to Eastern Europe, as well as participants in many other exchange programs. It's convinced me that not only are they among the best investments of our foreign assistance funds, but one we must keep funding. And I want to make special mention of one of your members I know well, the Vermont Council on World Affairs. With them, I've seen firsthand the outstanding job they've done in connecting Vermonters with the world. They not only enrich the lives of the foreign visitors in their Vermont host families and communities, they've helped to advance U.S. foreign policy goals. During the time when I've been chairman or ranking member of the Appropriations Subcommittee that provides the funding for international diplomacy and development, I always strongly support the Vermont Council and all our public diplomacy programs. And I've had the support of senators from both parties. But we know at no time was this more necessary than during the past 4 years. There were actions by the Trump White House that seriously damaged our international reputation, our credibility, even our global leadership. And at a time when the White House was withdrawing from international organizations and agreements by proposing deep cuts in funding for educational, professional, cultural exchange programs, or treating alliances as if they don't matter, or cutting our contributions to the United Nations, the promoting of an America First policy. Well, we did our best to provide the necessary funding to continue building bridges with the next generation of foreign leaders. And I thank certainly those senators in both parties who joined with me on that. But also, I know the way Marcel and I feel about the Vermont Council, a real partner in that effort, as were Global Ties' other members. 60 years is a long time, but I congratulate and I thank you for the contributions you and your members have made to this country and to the world. Thank you.
I'm Mark Rebstock, Vice President of External Relations at Meridian International Center, which is a national program agency here in Washington, D.C.
And I'm Joel Colony, Vice President for External Engagement and Advocacy at World Learning, an NPA headquartered in Washington, D.C. and Vermont. As you just heard from our elected leaders, international exchange programs have brought people together for over 8 decades, strengthening ties between the United States and the world, and fulfilling the mandate of the Fulbright-Hays Act to increase mutual understanding between Americans and people of all countries through educational and cultural exchange. And now, for the past 6 decades, Global Ties US has been supporting and galvanizing the international exchange field by strengthening organizations across our country that host international citizens and leaders and greatly benefit American communities. And it's because of all of you that our elected leaders understand the power and the impact of exchanges. The global pandemic has been devastating, and our hearts go out to everyone in the US and around the world who have lost loved ones and who have suffered during this time. This past year was truly unprecedented and underscored like nothing else the importance of international exchanges. We need to expand and strengthen efforts to build greater understanding and meaningful connections between Americans and people across the globe. And we'd like to share 5 reasons why now is the time to refocus our collective efforts to that end. First, increased investments in exchanges will allow us to not only further strengthen support among Americans for exchanges, it will enable us to include new voices here in the US and internationally. This will expand the ability of exchange programs to become more inclusive, reflecting, sharing, and celebrating the rich diversity of our country. By doing so, the US can demonstrate its commitment to inclusion and equity, bringing in more Americans from our rural towns to our inner cities, and international participants from underrepresented populations in other countries. Second, this year has made clear our need to integrate technology into every aspect of the exchange experience. COVID-19 forced implementers to rapidly adapt and scale up new and innovative solutions to connect the world. Virtual activities are a critical supplement to face-to-face exchanges that should be sustained because they increase the inclusivity, impact, and depth of exchange programs. Moving forward, it's now not more virtual at the expense of face-to-face engagement. Now more than ever, we know that we need more of both. Third, exchanges allow us to share America's democratic values. A values-driven US foreign policy requires expanding exchange opportunities, along with bolstering the capacity of implementers to increase the size and scope of their programs. There is no better messenger for our values than the American people, and no more powerful means of conveying those values than through citizen diplomacy, our exchanges.
Fourth, international exchanges help to build and strengthen networks. Between the global pandemic, rising nationalism, climate change, increasing distrust between people, and the weaponization of disinformation, it's critical that the United States both rebuild and construct anew the human networks needed to successfully tackle these and future challenges and expand cooperation across borders. It's more important than ever to address these global challenges, including by expanding international people-to-people exchanges in capacity and geographic scope, so that we may reach new audiences and participants and share American values. Finally, our programs help to tackle foreign policy priorities through public diplomacy. Given the myriad challenges facing our country, we acknowledge the value of exchange programs to achieve foreign policy priorities. Exchange programs are recognized as effective tools of public diplomacy across the partisan spectrum and have historically had a positive impact on the standing of the US in the world. As Ambassadors Paula Dobriansky, Ed Gabriel, and Marissa Lino recently concluded in a major review of educational and cultural exchanges, exchange programs are among the most potent and cost-effective instruments in the US foreign policy toolkit. Additionally, international exchanges raise the profile and prestige of United States educational institutions and partners who interact with them, creating long-lasting cultural and business relationships. For all of these reasons, we strongly believe that our work has never been more necessary or relevant, and that, as the popular hashtag has it, exchanges matter. Thanks for all that you do to support and implement these programs, and I hope you'll continue to join us in speaking up for the value of exchanges. And now we have some friends from Global Ties Miami who are doing exactly that, Annette Alvarez and Athena Pacera.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Global Ties US, for allowing Global Ties Miami to share our thoughts on advocacy and civic participation. The earlier remarks focused on the overarching reasons how exchanges, particularly the IVLP, offer tangible returns and are critically important to our nation's support of democracy here and around the world. I've often thought that the genius of the IVLP is the public-private partnership between the US Department of State, national program agencies, and the Global Ties US network of 85 community members across America, each pledging to carry out the objectives of the program. It is collaborative, approachable, and real. And at our grassroots level, we have the privilege and responsibility of transferring these objectives from policy to actionable events. We are engaging citizen diplomats who are teachers, students, retirees, law enforcement and legal professionals, entrepreneurs, nonprofit and civic leaders to help us bring the IVLP to life. On more than one occasion, we've wondered, does the phrase citizen diplomat resonate with them? Is it an apt description of their contribution to the conversations and learning that are taking place because of the exchanges we host? So we asked, and we're delighted with the responses. I'll share one. Citizen diplomat describes the person-to-person connection that makes the culture and experience of a city, state, nation relatable to visitors from other places. Citizen diplomacy is powerful because it brings the high-level, stereotypical ideas of what a place is about down to a personal, meaningful level, where people are more likely to realize all that we share rather than how we differ. Once a person has made that connection, they are more likely to have positive feelings about a place and its culture. That one response is illustrative of the others, all thoughtful and all speaking to the individual citizen's role in shaping international relations. Imagine for 80 years, hundreds of citizen diplomats in South Florida, thousands across Florida, and tens of thousands of them in communities across our nation, stepping forward to voluntarily support the U.S. Department of State's International Visitor Leadership Program. Exchange matters to them and to us because their civic participation is democracy in action, and they lend their voices in support of exchanges. This is not lost on our emerging foreign leaders. They are paying attention to what they see, and hear, and sense, and they're making up their own minds about the US and its people. And when they reflect on this, they often say they understand us a little better because up close, they have seen ordinary people, citizen diplomats, being entrusted to do extraordinary things, making meaningful and lasting connections. Civic engagement is another reason exchange matters. Athena, you've led our advocacy efforts. Please share your thoughts.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Annette, for sharing those important points about why exchange matters and what it means to be a citizen diplomat. I would also like to say thank you to our partners at Global Ties US for inviting us to share on the topic of strengthening democratic institutions and civic participation. Now, upon reflecting what we wanted to share with you all, we asked ourselves the questions: why do we bother? What is it exactly that gets us to send an email, attend a virtual event, or even set up a phone meeting with the offices of our elected officials? Why is Global Ties Miami particularly passionate about advocacy work and showing the local impact of exchanges to our congressional representatives? Where does that little fire pushing us forward come from? Well, while we strongly believe in the national level reasons for this work, such as improving international relationships and national security, and of course, the state and local level reasons, such as jobs, economic impacts, and the many other benefits to our local community, we are also deeply driven by internal and personal reasons. Now, if you don't mind indulging me a little, I would like to take this moment to share with you my personal reason for participating in advocacy efforts, with the hope that my story will help you to take a moment and discover your personal reasons for engaging in civic participation and advocacy work. Now, for a long time, I was living with a sense of frustration and uneasiness. I would see international conflicts on the news and be frustrated that, in my opinion, a little less posturing and a little more effort at seeing different perspectives could really be helpful. I found myself becoming the classic armchair critic, grumbling at the TV, complaining to friends and colleagues, and unable to find the right outlet for the tensions I was feeling. I found myself to be particularly disheartened by what seemed to me like a breakdown of communication and overall bad will between countries. Now, one day, Annette introduced me to the idea of advocacy work for exchange programs. Now, at this point, with Global Ties Miami, I am already a strong believer in citizen diplomacy and how far it can go to improve relationships between countries. So it was as though a light bulb went on, and I finally found what I felt was a way to take some action. Participating in advocacy makes me feel empowered as a citizen. The process of contacting our representatives makes me feel like I'm having my voice heard and that I've found a way to calm the internal tension that I felt for so long. Every time we have another meeting or send an email, I feel like I've found a forum to speak about a program that I truly believe in, and I am no longer that angry old Muppet commenting from the balcony. Now, when it comes to doing advocacy, I challenge all of you here today to ask yourself, what personal reason could you have to regularly reach out to your elected officials? What can you do in the next month? Maybe send an email, make a call, leave a message, but what can you do to satisfy that deep down desire to have your voice heard by engaging in advocacy? Now, with that said, I hope you accept our challenge and that you give yourself the opportunity to feel that sense of empowerment as a citizen as you have your voice heard and speak up for exchanges. It is now my pleasure to let you hear from Janelle Coswell, Citizen Diplomacy Program Director at the International House in Charlotte, North Carolina. Janelle?
Greetings, everyone, from Charlotte, North Carolina. My name is Janelle Coswell, Citizen Diplomacy Program Director at International House. Like everyone tuning in from all around the country and all around the world, the Citizen Diplomacy team at International House has been working hard to make the best of the pandemic and keep working to build and maintain strong relationships with our global neighbors. But with challenges brought on by the pandemic come opportunities. In this case, opportunities to use our vast network, experiences, and resources to support our community and communities around the world. The hardships endured as a result of the pandemic is felt all over the globe. But our network is well-connected, creative, resourceful, and resilient. When the unthinkable happened last year and in-person exchanges were shut down, we regrouped, retooled, and used what we had to reach out to our community, our partners, our alumni, and friends all over the world. The work of a CBM gives us the unique ability to connect with every different kind of organization, leader, person, place, you name it. We have someone to call in our Rolodex. We jumped in to assist and support our community, from advocating for international immigrant and minority-owned small businesses, to getting involved with bridging the digital divide that has grown exponentially for lower income communities, acting as a center for information for COVID-19 resources, working with local government leaders and healthcare providers, advocating for healthcare equity and access for all, and now working for vaccine distribution equity. We jumped in 2 feet, full force, like so many of the CBMs in our network, to help our communities struggling with the fallout of the pandemic. We engaged our alumni network, sharing what was happening in their hometowns for COVID relief and joining the Black Lives Matter movement. But it wasn't just us in Charlotte, it was so many of our CBM colleagues throughout the network. Jody Hope Michaels, Colleagues International in Kalamazoo, starting the Feed the Fight to help feed frontline workers during the pandemic. Rochester Global Connections, packaging and distributing over 5,000 surgical masks to the community. Global Ties Arkansas, supporting their community partners and distributing information. International Institute of Buffalo, supporting refugee communities and distributing vital information in different languages and assisting with employment benefits. Northern Nevada International Center, engaging the refugee community to make masks for local hospitals. World Affairs Council Seattle, with their staff volunteering with local organizations during the COVID relief fight. New Orleans Citizen Diplomacy Council in delivering food to the community. World Affairs Council of Central Florida, sharing information to the local community on COVID relief. World Affairs Council in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, making face masks for students. I, like everyone out there today in Zoom land, am so passionate about the work that we do, facilitating knowledge sharing with our local leaders and leaders around the world, all with the aim of advancing global peace, understanding, and prosperity. It is in this time that we need to realize the strength of our network, the strength of our communities, and sharing that strength with communities that we're connected to through the IVLP all around the world. COVID-19 will come to an end, and the challenges will change. We will have new challenges. But it is so important for us to dig in, to be resourceful, to be resilient, and to showcase the strength of our network, not only helping our own communities, but leading the way in showing communities around the world how they can also jump in and help one another. It is my great, great pleasure to be the capstone for this segment, joining so many wonderful and amazing colleagues of mine. And I take the time to thank you all and hope that you enjoy the rest of our national meeting, even though we're not here in person together, but we can still, with the help of technology, enjoy being a part of this wonderful global community.